Hello, nice to see you on my channel, Hearts and Shadows. Enjoy watching.
My name is Jeffrey. Life has a way of testing you when you least expect it. A year ago, I lost everything I'd built with my two hands. At first, I tried to hold my head up. I told myself it was temporary and I'd bounce back. But as the weeks dragged on, I could see the shift in my wife. The respect started fading. It's hard to describe what it feels like to look at the woman you love and realize she sees you as a burden. We started fighting over little things. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. She brought another man to my house. She really thought I'd roll over and accept it. But what she didn't know was that when you push a man who's lost everything too far, he fights back. And what happened next was something she never saw coming. When I first met my wife, Deborah, everything in my life was in a good place. My business was doing well, and I had a comfortable routine. Deborah was a senior manager at one of the companies my firm had just started working with. Our first few interactions were strictly professional and pretty good at what we did. That mutual respect for each other's competence was the first spark. One successful deal led to another, and eventually, those late-night meetings and email threads turned into longer conversations and shared laughs. I was the one who asked her out. She smiled, said yes, and that was it. Our first date was relaxed, easy. There was no pressure to impress because we already knew a lot about each other professionally. That made it feel natural. After that, we just clicked. Date after date, things deepened. Within a few months, we were seeing each other almost every week. People around us joked that we were the perfect match. We liked being seen as a power couple. It felt good to have someone beside me who understood long hours and business stress without making me feel guilty for it. At the same time, we could shift gears and enjoy weekends away or quiet nights in. Then, about a year into our relationship, Deborah brought up wanting to have a child. She was just honest when she said she was approaching her mid-30s and didn't want to delay it much longer. I respected that. We talked about it seriously, and we both agreed if we were going to take that step, we wanted to do it right. That's when we started planning the wedding. And the wedding was big. There were CEOs, clients, and even some government reps in attendance. For a while, marriage felt just as beautiful as that day. I honestly thought I had found my person. Financially, we were comfortable. Emotionally, we were in sync back then. The first year of marriage felt like a solid partnership. We communicated well, made decisions together, and supported each other. There was a rhythm to it. She handled things at her job, I handled things at mine, and at night, we'd sit down, eat, talk, and decompress. After a while, we started trying for kids. That was important to my wife, but month after month, nothing happened. Eventually, we learned that conceiving naturally would be difficult for her. We decided on IVF. It was expensive, emotionally draining, and honestly, tough on both of us. But we pushed through it. When our son was born, everything else faded into the background. I was proud to be a dad. I took that role seriously. We adjusted our lives for him. I scaled back on travel, made more time at home. Deborah returned to work after her maternity leave and picked up where she left off. 3 years after having our son, everything started crumbling. On the outside, things still looked fine, but on the inside, my world was falling apart. My business, which I'd built from the ground up, took a hit I never saw coming. One of the companies we had partnered with turned out to be running a financial fraud scheme. And because we were publicly associated with them, the fallout hit us just as hard. Even though we had no hand in what they did, the public didn't wait for proof. Clients started pulling out. Overnight, we lost nearly all our contracts. Everything we had worked for just evaporated. In less than a month, I went from being financially stable to losing 90% of our assets and income. One bad partnership, and suddenly I was being looked at like a criminal by people I'd done business with for years. My name, my company's reputation, it all got dragged into the mud. We filed a lawsuit against the partner company, but justice isn't quick. The court process is slow, expensive, and emotionally draining. In the meantime, bills didn't stop. Employees still had to be paid. My family still had to eat. I burned through our savings trying to hold things together, but no matter how hard I tried, the numbers just didn't add up anymore. I finally reached a point where I had to admit I couldn't carry this alone. That was a hard pill to swallow. For most of our marriage, I was the provider. I liked being able to take care of my family, but now I needed help. One night, after putting our son to bed, I sat down with Deborah and told her the truth. I was struggling. I needed her to pick up a few responsibilities, help with some bills, contribute where she could, just until we could get back on our feet. What I got was cold. She looked at me like I had insulted her. Her exact words were, "This isn't my mess to fix." Then she walked out of the room. I just sat there in silence, trying to understand what had just happened. I just needed a little support from the person who was supposed to be in this with me. After that conversation, things between us got worse. Deborah grew more distant. She barely touched me anymore, avoided conversations, and found reasons to stay out of the house. When she did help pay a bill, it came with complaints or passive-aggressive comments. I kept hoping it was temporary, that once the case went through and I rebuilt the business, we'd be okay. But week after week, it felt like I was the only one still fighting for our family. Looking back now, I realize how alone I already was, even before everything else happened. I started noticing things that didn't sit right with me, things that made me pause, even though I didn't want to believe they meant anything serious. Deborah suddenly began traveling a lot. She started going on these work trips and seminars more often than she ever had in our entire marriage. At first, I didn't think much about it. Maybe her job had picked up. But then the pattern became hard to ignore. These trips always came up during the weekends or right before important dates. It didn't feel like work. It felt like she was running from something or someone. She'd come home from those trips looking emotionally distant. She'd barely make eye contact, give short answers, and then retreat into her phone. And that's where I started paying attention more closely. Her phone was like a lifeline. She kept it close, always face down, always on silent. She used to leave it charging out in the open. Now it was always with her, even when she stepped outside for air. She'd get messages late at night, and I'd catch her texting with her back turned, whispering into the speaker in hushed tones when she thought I was asleep. It hurt, but I didn't want to accuse her without proof. A part of me still believed that I was wrong. I was still fighting a brutal legal case, but strangely, even in the middle of all that chaos, I still held on to this quiet hope that once the legal storm passed, once the business got back on its feet, Deborah would come back to me. So I focused on the lawsuit. The case was finally turning around. The attorneys had uncovered a key piece of evidence, and it looked like we'd win. That small progress gave me something to hold on to. I didn't want to believe she was cheating. I wanted to believe she was still mine, even if all the signs were pointing in the opposite direction. One Thursday evening, Deborah told me she was going out with friends, some dinner or drinks or something. I don't even remember her exact words anymore because, by that point, I'd stopped listening closely because she had been using the same lines over and over. She'd been doing this for months, leaving late, coming back even later, and I had long given up on waiting by the door or checking the clock. My priority had shifted entirely to our son. After the nanny left for the evening, it was just me and him. We had our bedtime story routine. That little boy had no idea the world around him was cracking at the foundation. The next morning, I got up early to make some coffee. I walked into the kitchen, still groggy, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. Then I stopped cold. There he was. Some man I had never seen before, standing in my kitchen, shirtless, making himself some coffee. For a second, I froze. I genuinely thought I was hallucinating. My brain couldn't connect the dots fast enough. I didn't lose my voice, though. I asked one question, as calmly as I could manage. "Who are you?" Before he could even answer, my wife walked in, hair messy. I looked at her, and I asked plain and direct, "Who is this, and how long has this been going on?" I just wanted the truth, however ugly it might be. Her response was nothing but venom. She crossed her arms and snapped, "Don't start with your questions, Jeffrey. You don't own me. Being married on paper doesn't mean you get to police who I spend time with." She said it like I was the crazy one for expecting basic respect under the roof I worked day and night to provide. I turned to the guy, looked him square in the face, and asked, "Did you know she's a married woman?" He smirked. I saw red. Not because I wanted to win some macho contest or play tough, but because that look told me everything. He didn't care, and he thought this was funny. Almost a year's worth of bottled-up pressure, failing business contracts, silent dinners, my wife's emotional absence. The weight of holding our family together by myself snapped loose in that instant. I lost it as I hit him. And I didn't stop at one. I was tired of being humiliated in silence. I was tired of waking up every day pretending things were fine. I was tired of being the only one still trying. Deborah screamed at me, called me pathetic, violent, and insecure. She wasn't horrified by what she did. She was angry that I reacted. But I didn't care anymore. I didn't even see her. That man ran out of the house, shirt half torn. And in that moment, I realized something. I had been holding on to a marriage that only existed in my mind. That wasn't a breaking point. After the dust settled, I sat in my home office for what felt like hours. I kept replaying it all in my head. I had never laid hands on another man in my adult life, but in that moment, something inside me snapped. And now, sitting there in the quiet, I couldn't stop thinking about the consequences. What if he pressed charges? What if I had just made things worse for myself? But more than the legal mess, what hit me harder was the emotional wreckage. How did we even get here? How did the woman who once held my hand through sleepless nights and whispered prayers over my ambitions become the same woman who brought another man into my home? It's not like we hadn't faced tough times before. But this time, she didn't just distance herself. She checked out completely. Her affection faded. Her words became sharp. And when I needed support the most, she gave it to someone else. The hardest part wasn't the cheating. It was realizing that the person I thought would ride through the storm with me had already jumped ship the second the skies got dark. It was realizing that she didn't just fall out of love. She lost respect. And once respect is gone, the relationship is just a hollow shell. And if I stayed in a marriage built on resentment and betrayal, what would be the future? That night, I didn't sleep. I opened my laptop, started documenting everything, and by morning, I called my lawyer. I told him I was ready to move forward. This marriage was over, and I was going to fight not just for myself, but for my son. The divorce didn't happen overnight. It stretched out over several long, exhausting months that tested every bit of my patience. At first, Deborah was surprisingly calm about it. She agreed that ending the marriage made sense. I guess in her head, she thought she'd walk away clean. No strings, no consequences. But everything changed the moment she realized she'd have to start paying. That's when her tone shifted. Deborah had earned more than I did for a while now. When the lawyers laid it out, suddenly, she wasn't so eager to finalize anything. I wasn't trying to bleed her dry. I just wanted what was fair. I had taken care of our son, kept the house running, and held things down emotionally for years now. But Deborah, the moment things got hard, she bailed. And now she was furious that the court saw that too. The judge reviewed everything. In the end, they ruled I should keep primary custody. And with that, I kept the house. It made sense. This was our son's home. Uprooting him just to satisfy Deborah's pride wouldn't help anyone. She tried to fight it. Filed paperwork. Switched lawyers. Sent long emails trying to paint me as the unstable one. But the facts didn't lie. And the court saw through the noise. I won't pretend it didn't feel good to have that confirmation. To have someone in authority say, "No, you're not crazy. You were doing right by your kid." As for the support payments, I accepted them without guilt. She never offered help when I was struggling. Not once. Not when I was selling things to cover groceries. Not when I was lying awake wondering how we'd make do with less. So no, I didn't feel bad now that the tables had turned. When the divorce was finally signed and done, it didn't feel like a victory. She was free to do whatever made her happy. And I was finally free to rebuild my life without the weight of constant judgment and resentment. We both walked away. It took months of stress, doubt, and constant lawyer meetings. But eventually, the truth came out. My company was officially cleared of any involvement in the fraud. The investigation that had hung over me like a black cloud was finally over. The authorities not only cleared my name but ruled that the damage done to my business, loss of contracts, the freeze on our accounts, the smear across social media, was a result of false allegations. We were even awarded compensation, though no amount of money could make up for the sleepless nights or the looks I got from people who used to shake my hand proudly. Still, it was something. It was justice. And it meant I could start over. With that chapter behind me, I made the choice to rebuild, not just the business, but myself. I went back to the core of what made the company successful in the first place. I trimmed the fat, got rid of anyone who wasn't in it for the long haul, and poured myself into the work like it was therapy. And still, every now and then, I'd think back to that day, when Deborah brought a man into our home. The audacity, the disrespect. But here's the thing, he never pressed charges. And believe me, it could have gotten a lot worse. I think about that more often than I care to admit, not because I feel guilty, but because I'm grateful. That moment could have destroyed more than just a marriage. It could have cost me everything. I'm not proud of what happened, but I am proud of how I handled what came after. Most importantly, I've got my son. That boy is my anchor. Everything I do now is for him. Sometimes I catch myself wondering how we even got here. How a marriage that started with so much love and hope turned into public embarrassment and private chaos. But I don't stay in that space too long. I've made peace with the fact that some people only walk with you for a part of the journey.